RussLeon, Quasi-Absolute Hypothesis of Universe. Philosopher, do not discuss the greatest in vain. Inquisitive, excuse me, master, but we cannot help it. Philosopher, do understand, a man with his limited mental power cannot perceive the infinite. Inquisitive, but are we not connected to it? Are we not its particles? And can't a particle know its own nature, and thereby know it? Yes, indeed, we cannot help thinking and reasoning constantly. And to speak of the greatest, we need a basis. We need hard evidence and facts that will serve us as the postulates of the proposed hypothesis. And there are some. We list them now. The first postulate. We exist because we think and write these lines. Cogito ergo sum. We will define the term we further below. The second postulate. We exist somewhere and in something, where our thinking self is. And though we say that we exist here in this world, whatever its nature, we will talk about it later. Thus, the world is a certain space in which we and other objects that form it exist. The above-mentioned world is, because it is given to us in our sensations, in our experience. We plus the world will be called existence in one word. The third postulate. Existence exists in time. The fact that we can think proves the existence of time. For convenience purposes, we call existence in time and space by word being. The fourth postulate. Being changes in time. It can either develop, evolve, or fall apart, degrade. Experience proves that everything is subject to change. We observe the birth and death of stars, the birth and death of living objects, and as for us, we, observing and experiencing, have a dual nature. One part, which we will call body, is born, develops, and then degrades and dies, dissolving into the world. The other part, which we will call consciousness, emerges at some point in the body and, with the normal course of things, develops until the death of the body, and then simply disappears from the world. This is where we can define the term we. So we are that what thinks, even at this moment, when we are writing and reading these lines. It realizes what it is doing now, and realizes that it is it who's doing it, and not something else. Thus, we can conclude that we are a self-conscious actor. This is what we will call consciousness. And given the fact that there are a lot of such units of consciousnesses, we will specify that we are a set of individual units of consciousness, IUCs, or simply consciousness. The fifth postulate. That which does not develop degrades and gets destroyed. This is one of the fundamental laws of the reality we observe, and it is called the law of the increase of entropy, or degree of disorder. Here is a little example. If the building is not provided with constant maintenance and repair, it falls into decay and collapses. If the brain is not forced to work until the death of the body, then by the time of the death of the body, a person could degrade down to the level of an animal or even a plant. when the manifestation of human consciousness could be significantly reduced. The sixth postulate: the development of consciousness can be exponential. Experience tells us that the more we know and are able to accomplish, the easier we acquire new knowledge and skills. Such development could be termed as self-accelerating. We are improving ourselves and transforming the world around us. We'd like to repeat that we are talking about the normal course of things, and do not take acts of madness and sabotage into account. Problems and their solution. And now let us mention the main problems that people have encountered and which are solved within the framework of this hypothesis. Problem 1. We cannot logically and positively explain the sudden emergence of life. Problem of Genesis. Problem 2. We do not understand what consciousness is, where it is located, where it comes from, and where it disappears into. The problem of emergence. Problem 3. We cannot explain the silence of the universe. That is, the apparent absence of signs and signals from other intelligent civilizations in the universe. Fermi Paradox. Problem 4. We cannot explain the numerous anomalous phenomena and mysterious puzzles in relation to man, the earth, and the cosmos. Problem of anomalous. Problem 5. We cannot understand the reasons for the existence of good and evil in the world. Problem of morality. Problem 6. We cannot understand the purpose and meaning of our own existence. Problem of the meaning of life. Problems that cannot be solved. This hypothesis cannot explain these two problems. Unexplained Problem 1. It is the nature of that potentiality, pleroma, out of which the universe, manifestation, has originated, and possibly still emerges, i.e., we do not know more about it than will be briefly mentioned below. At the same time, we draw attention to the fact that here world and universe are totally different concepts, as it will become clear further below. Unexplained Problem 2. Unexplained is termed initial emergence, i.e., primary appearance of life and consciousness in the larger universe. It is this inability to solve the above two problems that labeled the hypothesis as quasi-absolute. And even to solve the 6 less hard problems mentioned above, we need to drop all our prejudices, beliefs, and dogmas, which until now have limited our thinking and ability to speculate about the greatest. In order to understand what we are going to talk about, the reader will need intellectual courage, since you and us, we intend to challenge the eternity and infinity of the universe itself. So, our esteemed and courageous reader, the quasi-absolute hypothesis of the universe, QAHU, is formulated as follows. In the infinite and eternal universe, consciousness exists forever, and there is nothing in it except consciousness. And now let us justify it within the framework of the logic that is available to us and the 6 postulates presented above. Of course, for a person who recognizes himself to be finite and perishable. It is difficult to operate with such absolute concepts as eternity and infinity. Nevertheless, we are bold, and for a start, we will try to give our simplest definition of these two terms. Eternity is an infinite time, both in the direction of the future and the past, where time is the duration of the existence of any entity, thing, symbol, event, or process. Infinity is, first of all, the spatial extent of an object, and there is only one such infinite object, the universe. The universe is a space of infinite volume, in which there are everything that can arise and exist. There are two kinds of infinity, a physical one and an abstract one. The physical infinity is the infinity of the universe with no limits, and the abstract infinity is a mathematical symbol used to indicate the number, line, plane, and volume without limits. In particular, there is an infinite number of points on any line, the number of lines passing through one point, or in the physical sense, the number of IUCs in the universe. In other words, the IUCs are countless, since there is no number that would correlate with them. According to the QAHU, there is a one whole consisting of two parts, manifested one and non-manifested. The non-manifested part, potentiality or pleroma, is the source of everything that is born and begins to exist in the universe, manifestation. In the infinite past from the pleroma into the universe, at that time purely material, life appeared at an infinitely large number of points. Life in the material universe has since developed to such an extent that, again thanks to the pleroma, it gave rise to the emergence of an infinitely large number of IUCs. The IUCs united in communities all across the universe for the development of matter and space of the universe. Some communities could not develop and disappeared, being dissolved into the pleroma. As for other communities, they went on developing and from a certain point began to develop exponentially. They reached such a high level of development that they defeated disease, vice, and death itself. They have so improved their material bodies that they have turned from the material basis of their individual bodies to the radiant form. Remember Konstantin Tsiolkovsky's radiant humanity, which was based on pure information. These energy-based informational communities of the IUCs formed the so-called larger consciousness systems, LCSs, in terms of TomCampbell. The infinite number of IUCs exponentially developing in the infinite universe during the eternity that has passed till the present moment have conquered the entire space of the universe, filled up its entire volume, turning all the matter of the universe into themselves, from which they themselves emerged the eternal time ago. Ouroboros closed on itself. Such was the past eternity. Entropy and the mode of existence of the larger consciousness system. But how did the LCS keep itself from degenerating and decay, you may ask? Because after reaching the apex, there should be a descent or a fall. Yes, This is how temporary formations, such as plant structures, human bodies, or even empires, end their lives. If we take, for example, the Roman one, which fell after it had nothing more to conquer. The fact is that, endowed with intellectual superpowers, all LCSs, which, incidentally, have reached a peaceful division of the entire universe into spheres of influence, were well aware of the laws that prevail in the universe. These laws, the larger rule set in terminology of TomCampbell, appeared in the universe the eternity of time ago, and one of the most important of them was and remains the law of increase or non-decrease of entropy in closed systems. And since the LCS is a closed system of finite size, again according to TomCampbell, in order to control entropy, it needs to constantly seek energy and information, due to its energy and information-based nature. LCS structure, according to Thomas Campbell's My Big Toe theory. The LCS is a gigantic but finite database accumulated over the entire history of its existence. And in order for this base not to crumble due to entropy, it needs to be maintained and updated continuously, delivering new streams of information to it. And that means that further development of LCS requires certain measures to be taken. There is no doubt that all LCSs interact with each other, but the parts themselves that make up the LCS must also interact. But how to achieve this within the framework of a database where only a formal exchange of existing information is possible, without creating new one, its so-called chat room? To obtain it in a completely conquered universe, the creation of new artificial universes, worlds, is required, in which, albeit virtually, the movement of energy and information would continue. Information can be new only when everything happens for the first time, when you can avoid stencil and repetition of the already known. But how to achieve every time the novelty of situations, decisions, and consequences? How to deal with an increase in entropy? The LCS found a solution in creating the so-called entropy reduction simulators, namely self-developing virtual worlds, universes, one of which is our universe. This is the so-called physical matter reality, PMR, according to the terminology adopted in the theory proposed by one of the most penetrating and daring minds of our time, Thomas Campbell. See his trilogy, My Big Toe, My Big Theory of Everything, and hundreds of videos on the internet. One or more self-developing simulations are launched in the body of the LCS with support from all or part of its computing power, the capabilities of which we can't help admiring if we pay attention to the amazing complexity, coherence, and harmony that prevail in our virtual physical world. Before the development process of the world simulation begins, the LCS's scientists analyze and debug the program, determine the constants of the future world, assign the set of laws, the PMR rule set, that would govern the simulation. They set the length of time iterations, internal time of simulation, and of course its trial versions are also launched. During operation, the simulation is serviced by technicians of the LCS who ensure an uninterrupted process flow. This, of course, reminds us of a complex computer game with a complete immersion in virtual reality. But this is not just complete immersion, but absolutely complete immersion in a virtual game. For all that, even in this almost perfect game, there seems to be occasional software errors that we already habitually call matrix bugs. Paradoxical as it may sound, our world of the so-called physical reality is essentially an unreal virtual world. To prove its virtuality in other places, we cite more than 100 signs of this, although it is quite sufficient to quote only one experiment of diffraction of light or electrons on a double slit with a delayed choice, the reverse causality paradox. However, evidence and facts proving the virtual nature of our world are rejected or ignored by the mainstream science. Unfortunately, the mainstream science has actually turned into a dogmatic religion and has become an obstacle to understanding the true nature of reality. Nevertheless, let us go on considering the process of how our world simulator of reducing entropy for LCS works. So, IUCs, which are parts of the LCS, upload part of themselves into the avatars in our simulation game and play the role of animals and people who begin to interact with other characters played or controlled by other IUCs. In the simulation, according to Campbell, there are also many non-player characters, NPCs. So a part of each IUC is incarnated in an avatar, or, so to speak, in the body of a conceived being at the initial stage. According to various sources, for humans this occurs in the mother's womb during the first months of pregnancy. The part of the IUC uploaded in the game avatar is what we perceive as ourselves in this life. It is called an awareness unit with a free will, FWAU, Free Will Awareness Unit, since it is aware of itself and the world around it as a true reality, and also has the ability to perform any actions based on the situation and its previous incarnation experience. However, it is only subconsciously aware of it, at the level of intuition, and almost never explicitly. In order to create conditions when life, the game, seems completely new to the person, the player, the memory of its true nature and experience of previous incarnations is blocked for every free will awareness unit. Thanks to that, it, in the religious tradition embodied soul, can live its life, play the game, in a completely new way, making both right and wrong decisions, committing both good and evil deeds, and accordingly bear the entire burden of responsibility for this, both in the game and on returning from it. Good, evil, and moral issue. The LCS, in religion God, does not explicitly interfere in the game, so as not to embarrass or disrupt the natural course of events, just like, for example, the examiner does not solve tests for students, Although this does not exclude the possibility for the system in some necessary, according to the game supervisor, situations to give hints in the form of signs of fate when entering the game are assistants or guardian angels, entities controlled by the LCS itself, and that solves the notorious moral problem. The period of the game, or life for us, in Campbell's theory is called the experience package, and everything that surrounds the player is nothing but the scenery in our computer simulation game. And we repeat, let us not to be fooled by the seeming reality of our world. Our world is a computer simulation of the highest order of complexity, and do not worry about the computing power of the LCS's computers. Over the past eternity, they were able to find enough energy sources for their simulations, especially since the operating principle of each of them is extremely optimized. As it's been repeatedly emphasized, there is no need for LCS programmers to simulate every detail of the game when it is not observed. See the same experiment of the scattering of light or particles on two slits. And when an inquiring mind of an avatar wants to see something through a microscope, telescope, or hadron collider, LCS programmers give it the desired picture or experience to maintain a sense of the reality of the world. The whole cosmos, with its wealth of objects and events, is nothing but a picture and a game. Moreover, all the events in our simulator are subject to the principle of random selection from the probability distribution of possibilities. Probabilistic statistical principles are at work here. Simulation theories and LCS. Different theories of the virtuality of the world claim that our simulation is created either by an unearthly civilization or by our distant descendants, i.e., ourselves in the future, with the aim of either entertainment or scientific observation, or replay to fix the past mistakes. In our opinion, the only correct thing in such theories is that the simulation was created by ourselves, though not by us who developed in the distant future, but on the contrary, by us developed in the infinitely distant past. All what could be done and could be achieved in terms of the technological development of civilizations has long been done and achieved in the infinitely distant past. And this game, with absolutely complete immersion, is one of the products of such high-tech development. The QAHU hypothesis and Campbell's theory also easily explain the Fermi Paradox of the seeming absence of other intelligent civilizations in space. They are not there because they are not needed there, and this whole game was created just for us. Hence the numerous consequences of the strong anthropic principle around us. And yet we may not exclude the possibility of the existence in our universe of a couple of civilizations playing the same game as we do, and perhaps it is their spaceships, along with the robots, bots of LCS's programmers and caretakers, such as rods and flying saucers, that we sight in the sky, in the ocean, and in space as UFOs. In conclusion, we'd like to note that TomCampbell's theory of everything and these QAHU explain all the observed anomalous phenomena, both on Earth and in space. Paradoxical as it may seem, it turns out that in a person's worldview, religion and science have actually swapped places, and this is not difficult to verify. Religion initially asserted that God created the world. We say the LCS. Religion said that He created both people and animals. It said that God intervenes periodically in the course of events, that His angels help people and work miracles. But this indeed what happens in reality. The LCS's programmers do so. And in this category are all the anomalous phenomena that religion admits as miracles and science denies. Religion claims that God periodically destroyed and protected the world from destruction. And that is also true, because if the simulation is not going according to plan, then the LCS can either restart the simulation program or change something in it, and in such a way that no one will notice, because here we are only avatars in its game. For example, the Mandela Effect, which is gaining more and more popularity, testifies to this. Well, just think, how many times did the LCS save us from being destroyed by asteroids from space? Probably countless times. Religion spoke of sin and the punishment for it. But that is precisely what happens both on the Earth and upon the return of the player to the LCS. There they hold an inquiry type of conversation with the returned player, with resulting conclusions. It is a kind of debriefing we occasionally hold back on Earth. It should be noted that this conclusion of ours, like some others, is interpreted differently by TomCampbell, although we consider it to be quite significant. Religion insists on keeping the commandments and obligation of righteous living, and this turned out to be true too, since the task of the players in the simulation game is to reduce entropy, and any evil deeds or crime increases it, while good deeds, on the contrary, go on the player's record with a plus sign. Of course, in spite of religion, it could be said that science does not call on people to submit to the rulers, although science also depends on the money bags that finance the research of scientists. But what's bad is that the rulers force scientists to debunk all those phenomena that are actually signs from above, nudges from the LCS to some and even groups of people, with the aim of awakening them to a greater reality and thus better the ways they behave. And here we are talking primarily of UFO sightings, crop circles, various miracles, with remarkable recoveries, salvations, flukes, synchronicity, etc., and other phenomena that we construe as a sign. And yet it was science that was capable of lifting, and in fact managed to lift the veil more than 100 years ago, the veil which hid absolute truth from us for so long, about the nature of our reality. And it is not surprising that it is a representative of the scientific community. American physicist Thomas Campbell, along with a number of other prominent scientists, accomplished this truly heroic, in this age of lies, deceits, and fakes, step towards the truth, which in fact is a direct and sacred duty of every scientist. We are proud to have the honor of being acquainted with this outstanding researcher of the nature of consciousness. to share his views and promote them. We, just like him, say in our videos, be open to the truth. Don't deny it right away. Trust less in words, but rather check it yourselves. Seek and you'll find. Knock on the door of the truth, and it will open to you.